Just a servant. The words exploded from Donald Trump's mouth like a gunshot, echoing through the chamber. He wasn't just attacking Jasmine Crockett, he was spitting on millions of Americans who have spent centuries fighting racism, sexism, and injustice. Think about this. 1 in 3 Black women in America report being silenced or disrespected in the workplace. And in politics, the numbers are even darker. Less than 5% of congressional seats have ever been held by Black women. So when Jasmine Crockett locked eyes with the sitting 47th President of the United States, she wasn't just defending herself. She was carrying the weight of history. The tension was electric. Every camera in America was rolling. Every viewer at home could feel that this wasn't just another hearing. This was a battlefield. And with one steady breath, Jasmine was ready to turn Trump's insult into the spark that would ignite the fight for justice. Trump leaned back in his chair, shoulders heavy with arrogance, and with a smirk that dripped contempt, he spat the words into the room. This is nothing but a political circus. The insult didn't just hang in the air, it detonated. Every reporter in the chamber jerked their pens to paper. Cameras zoomed, microphones strained to capture the shockwave. The gallery stirred, whispers crackling like a fuse that had just been lit. But Jasmine Crockett wasn't built to flinch. Before the chair of the committee could even breathe, she slammed her palm against the oak table. The thunderclap silenced the room for a heartbeat, and then she cut through the air with words sharpened to a blade. Mr. President, for the first time in American history, we are watching a man treat justice itself like a joke. The chamber gasped. Trump shot out of his seat, finger stabbing across the table like a weapon. His voice, booming with rage, echoed against the marble walls. You're nothing but a fame-hungry fraud. You don't belong on the same stage as me. The words dripped venom, but Jasmine stood her ground. She didn't blink. The gallery erupted. Gasps, curses, murmurs of disbelief. It wasn't politics anymore. It was blood sport. And in that crucible, Jasmine's voice didn't waver. Her tone carried the steel of centuries, the fury of generations silenced, the fire of every woman who had ever been told she wasn't enough. I don't stand here for fame, Mr. Trump. I stand here because your power has poisoned justice, because the people of this country deserve someone who refuses to bow to your corruption. Trump's jaw tightened, his fist curled. For a flicker of a second, his mask of untouchable bravado cracked. The tension wasn't abstract anymore. You could feel it. It was in the tightness of the audience's breath, in the pulse of the cameras recording history live, in the tremor of every pen scribbling the headlines that would explode by morning. It was no longer about policy, no longer about hearings. It was about dominance, about truth versus deception, justice versus power. Trump leaned forward, voice low, venomous, daring her to break. You think you can stop me? You're just a servant in a system I built. That line, just a servant, landed like a slap. Some in the gallery gasped. Others shook their heads in disgust. Jasmine inhaled slowly, letting the insult burn into her chest. She didn't recoil. She weaponized it. No, Mr. Trump. Servants obey. Servants bow. Servants hide behind lies. That's not who I am. That's who you forced others to be for decades. Her words rolled like thunder, gathering power with each syllable. I am here because truth does not serve you anymore. Justice does not serve you anymore. And America will not serve your corruption anymore. The room roared alive. Applause cracked from the back benches. Journalists clashed over angles, and the chair struggled to slam the gavel for order. But order was gone. The hearing had transformed into something primal. Two figures locked in combat, one draped in the shadow of power, the other cloaked in the fire of resistance. It was no longer just Trump versus Crockett. It was the past clawing against the future. Trump raised his hand to quiet the crowd, trying to reassert his dominance. His lips curled into a sneer. You'll regret this, Crockett. You don't know who you're playing with. But Jasmine did know. She knew exactly who he was. The man who twisted truth until it snapped, who fed fear until it devoured trust, who turned the Oval Office into a throne for himself. And that was why she refused to step back. She leaned forward, her eyes locked on him, steady and unshaken. I know exactly who I'm dealing with, Mr. Trump, and I'm not afraid. The chamber shuddered. For a moment, even the cameras seemed to freeze. It wasn't just defiance, it was prophecy. The kind of sentence that would be replayed, dissected, quoted, carved into the memory of every viewer who would watch this moment again and again. History had tilted, and everyone in that room felt it. Trump glared, breathing heavy, cornered but unrelenting. Jasmine's hand still rested firm on the table, like an anchor holding her against the storm. The hearing wasn't about evidence anymore. It wasn't about procedure. It was about who would break first, and neither of them was willing to bend. This was only the beginning, the first spark of a firestorm that would scorch through every corner of the nation. And if you've made it this far, trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. Because this isn't just a story. This is history unfolding before your eyes. So if you believe in justice, if you believe in truth, and if you believe in stories that matter, subscribe to Harrison Stories. The battle has only just begun. Jasmine didn't wait for permission, didn't waste a second on pleasantries. She leaned forward, eyes locked on Trump, and launched the first strike. Mr. President, did you or did you not pressure officials to overturn certified election results? Yes or no? The room stiffened. Reporters froze, pens hovering midair. Trump shifted in his seat, lips curling into that familiar smirk. He waved his hand dismissively. That's a lie, a total witch hunt. Everyone knows it. But Jasmine wasn't playing defense. She snapped back, cutting his words mid-sentence. Answer the question, yes or no? The crack in her voice was deliberate, sharp, like a gavel slamming. Trump blinked, thrown off by the interruption. His instinct was to bark louder, to drown her out. Fake, weak, pathetic. You're pathetic, he roared, pointing across the table. His voice echoed like a hammer against steel. But Jasmine only smirked. The kind of smirk that said, you just walked into my trap. She leaned closer, not breaking eye contact. So you refused to answer, which means you did it. Gasps rippled through the chamber. The gallery buzzed alive, cameras panning for every twitch of his face. Trump slammed his palm against the table. I said it's fake. Don't twist my words. But the truth was plain. His silence said more than his noise. Jasmine knew it. The audience knew it. America knew it. She didn't pause. She pressed harder, each question like a hammer striking nails into a coffin. Did you speak with state legislators after the election? Yes or no? Trump, I speak with everyone. That's my job. Yes or no? You don't understand. Yes or no, Mr. President? Her voice sliced through his excuses. He faltered. His mouth opened, then closed. The mighty Trump, reduced to stammering silence. The audience outside, watching live on national TV, could feel the blows land. Every home across the country felt like they were ringside, watching a heavyweight bout, each jab from Jasmine sending shockwaves through the nation. Trump tried again, louder this time, desperate to reclaim ground. This is a disgrace. You're nothing but a fraud trying to make a name for yourself. Jasmine's laugh cut him sharper than any insult. It wasn't a sweet laugh. It was jagged, mocking, dangerous. If asking for the truth makes me a fraud, then what does lying to the American people make you? The chamber erupted, half gasps, half applause. Even some of Trump's allies in the room shifted uncomfortably in their seats. She didn't give him space to breathe. Did you or did you not instruct your supporters to march on the Capitol? Yes or no? Trump slammed his fist. I told them to be peaceful. Peaceful? Everyone knows it. Jasmine's eyes narrowed. Peaceful? Over 100 police officers injured, windows smashed, blood on the steps of Congress. You call that peaceful? The words hit like punches to the gut. Trump's face reddened, sweat glistening at his temple. He tried to talk over her, but she was faster. Every time he strayed, every time he spun another excuse, she sliced through it with the same demand. Answer, yes or no? The repetition was merciless, like a drumbeat hammering his defenses apart. Viewers at home leaned forward, gripping their armrests, the adrenaline surging as if they were inside that chamber. It wasn't politics anymore. It was raw combat, and Jasmine Crockett was winning. Her voice rose again, this time steady, deliberate, unflinching. Mr. Trump, you can call me fake, you can call me weak, you can call me pathetic, but what you cannot call me, what you will never call me, is silent. The words cracked like lightning, freezing the room. Trump's mouth opened, but no sound came. He shook his head, searching for a counterpunch, but the rhythm had shifted. He was cornered, and everyone knew it. Cameras zoomed in, his jaw clenched, her eyes blazing. It was political theater at its rawest, and millions of Americans were glued to their screens, watching the spectacle unfold like a championship match. Jasmine leaned back slightly, never breaking her stare. You wanted a circus, Mr. Trump? Well, here it is. But today, you're not the ringmaster. You're the clown. The chamber exploded. Gasps, shouts, a thunder of voices colliding in chaos. The chair pounded the gavel for order, but it was useless. The room was alive, boiling, history burning before their eyes. Trump seethed, gripping the edge of the table like it might shatter under his hands. But Jasmine, she sat tall, calm, fierce. The storm belonged to her now. The hearing wasn't ending. It was only intensifying. And the world outside could feel it. Every question, every interruption, every scar in Trump's armor. The fight was far from over. It was only the second round. Trump leaned back, wiping sweat from his brow, eyes narrowing like a predator changing its hunt. He had tried volume. He had tried denial. It wasn't working, so he shifted. His lips curled into a venomous grin. Tell me, Jasmine, how many times have you actually won a case that mattered? Or are you just another headline-chasing lawyer pretending to be important? Gasps rippled through the chamber. It wasn't about evidence anymore. It wasn't about the hearing. He was attacking her, her career, her identity. Trump leaned in further, his voice low but sharp, meant to cut. You're not qualified to question me. You barely belong in this room, and everybody knows it. The insult slithered across the chamber like poison. For a split second, silence pressed against Jasmine's chest. She could feel the sting. This wasn't just political theater. It was an old, ugly trick. The same tactic men in power had used for centuries. Diminish the woman, question her worth, bury her under shame. But Jasmine Crockett wasn't built to break. She straightened in her chair, her shoulders squaring like a warrior taking her stance. And then she smiled, a smile that wasn't sweet, wasn't polite. It was dangerous. Mr. Trump, thank you. You've just shown America exactly who you are. The gallery stirred. Reporters scribbled furiously. When pressed with the truth, you don't answer. You attack women, you question their worth, you smear their names because you cannot handle their strength. Her voice carried weight, the kind that filled every corner of the marble hall. This isn't about my resume. This is about your contempt for women, for justice, for every law that has ever tried to hold you accountable. Trump slammed his fist on the table. Don't lecture me. You're weak. You're untested. You're nothing compared to me. Jasmine didn't flinch. She leaned closer, slicing through his roar with surgical calm. Weak? If I'm so weak, Mr. Trump, why are you shouting? Why are you sweating? Why can't you answer a single question with honesty? The audience erupted. Some clapped. Others gasped. The chair slammed the gavel, warning both sides to remain orderly. But order was gone. The chamber was alive with chaos. History unfolding in real time. Trump, red-faced and raging, reached for another low blow. You think America cares what you say? You're just another angry voice, another politician playing the race and gender card to stay relevant. The words landed heavy. Some in the room flinched at their bluntness. But Jasmine seized them like fuel. Her laughter rang out, short, sharp, mocking. The race card? The gender card? Mr. Trump, those aren't cards, those are chains. Chains forged by men like you, who think women and people of color should stay in the background, silent and obedient. Her voice grew louder, steadier. But guess what? We're not silent anymore. And we will not be shoved back into the shadows just because the truth makes you uncomfortable. The room shook with energy. Trump pointed again, his words tumbling over themselves in anger. You're twisting everything. You're pathetic. Just pathetic. You don't deserve this seat. You don't deserve the respect of this chamber. But Jasmine cut him off like a blade through paper. Respect isn't inherited, Mr. Trump. It's earned. And the only thing you've earned is the disgust of a nation watching you belittle women instead of answering for your crimes. The words landed like a knockout punch. The audience roared. The chair's gavel slammed, desperate to restore order. A piercing alarm bell rang through the chamber, a rare warning used only when chaos threatened to spiral beyond control. But even the shrill clang of that bell couldn't drown the fire in Jasmine's voice. You call me unqualified? Then tell America, what qualifications does corruption give you? What resume does lying, cheating, and breaking the law build? Her tone was relentless, scorching. You sit there, the 47th President of the United States, and instead of defending your actions, you attack me. That's not strength, that's cowardice. Trump tried to interrupt, but she raised her hand, silencing him without permission. And every woman watching this knows it. Every mother, every daughter, every sister who has ever been told she wasn't enough. Today they see you, and they see me, and they know exactly who is standing on the side of truth. The bell rang again, echoing like a siren. The chair's voice strained over the chaos. Order! This chamber will have order. But it was too late. The duel had consumed the hearing. Trump, red with fury, teeth clenched. Jasmine, calm, defiant, unbroken. The lines had been drawn, and the fight was no longer about questions or answers. It was about survival, about who could stand tallest in the storm. And in that moment, it was clear. Jasmine Crockett was not just surviving. She was winning, but she wasn't finished. Not even close. Her hand slid beneath the stack of papers beside her. With deliberate precision, she pulled out a thick folder bound with tabs and sticky notes, every page prepared, every line ready to strike. The chamber leaned in. Cameras zoomed closer. Then she slammed it down. The sound cracked like thunder, echoing across marble and oak, rattling microphones, jolting every listener upright. Trump's head snapped toward the stack, his face tightening. Jasmine placed her palm firmly on top, her eyes never leaving his. This, she said, her voice clear, resonant, is the record. Phone calls, memos, sworn testimonies. Every word, every command, every order you gave to twist this nation's laws to your will. The gallery erupted in gasps. Trump lurched forward, pointing a trembling finger. That's fake. That's fabricated garbage. You people will stop at nothing. But Jasmine didn't flinch. Her gaze locked on him like iron. If it's fake, Mr. Trump, then why does your hand shake every time you look at it? The words cut through the air like a blade, and the cameras caught it, his hand, twitching ever so slightly against the table. The evidence wasn't just on paper. It was written across his face. The chamber ignited. Journalists shouted questions over one another. Camera shutters clicked like machine guns, each flash freezing Trump's panic in real time. The chair's gavel slammed. Order! I demand order! But there was no order. There was revelation. Jasmine flipped open the first page, reading with sharp precision. Transcript dated December 3rd. Direct quote, "Find me the votes. We need to flip this." She raised her eyes slowly, letting the words hang heavy. Your voice. Your command, not mine, not fabricated, yours. Trump's face flushed crimson. He shouted over her, his words cracking under fury. Lies, that's not me. That's doctored audio. You're desperate. But Jasmine anticipated every beat. Then swear under oath, right here, that it isn't your voice. Swear it before the American people. The room froze. Trump opened his mouth, but no words came. His jaw moved, his face contorted, but silence betrayed him, and silence was louder than any denial. The press gallery buzzed like hornets. Phones lit up, tweets fired across the nation, headlines practically writing themselves. Trump cornered by Crockett's evidence. Jasmine turned another page. Her tone sharpened, relentless. Memo from your chief of staff. The president insists on pushing false electors regardless of legal standing. Your orders, your fingerprints. Trump tried to rise, but his own lawyers tugged at his sleeve, whispering frantically, urging restraint. He tore his arm away, shouting instead, This is a witch hunt, a setup. She's nothing, nothing. But Jasmine's voice was steady, deliberate, unshaken. If I am nothing, then why does the truth burn you so badly? Why does every document, every witness, every record point back to you? Her words landed like sledgehammers. The chamber wasn't a hearing room anymore. It was an arena. The evidence itself had become her weapon, and she wielded it with the precision of a warrior striking down lies. She lifted another page, shaking it for all to see. Your legacy, Mr. Trump, isn't leadership. It's cover-ups. It's intimidation. It's corruption bound in paper and ink. And today America reads it out loud. The crowd roared. Some in the gallery stood, clapping despite the chair's desperate pleas for order. Trump's face, pale beneath his rage, gave him away. The documents were heavy, but the silence in his throat was heavier. Jasmine closed the folder with a deliberate thud, sliding it back across the table toward him. You call it fake. I call it proof, and the people of this country will decide which one they believe. The room pulsed with tension, so thick you could taste it. Every heartbeat, every camera flash, every whispered gasp carried the same truth. Trump had been struck, and the blow had landed. The chair pounded the gavel again, his voice hoarse. Order! Order in this chamber! But order was gone. History had cracked open, spilling into every corner of the nation. And at the center of it all stood Jasmine Crockett, calm, fierce, unyielding. This isn't just a story. This is history unfolding. And if you want to witness every page of this battle, don't just watch, join it. Subscribe to Harrison Stories and be part of the fight for truth. The storm has only begun to rage. Trump leaned back, his chest heaving, his hand tightening around the edge of the table. His eyes darted across the room, searching for an escape, for a crack in the wall of scrutiny pressing down on him. And then, suddenly he straightened. His voice boomed, louder than before, carrying the practiced cadence of rallies and arenas. I built this nation stronger than anyone before me. The economy soared under my hand. The world feared us, and America respected me. Nobody has done what I've done. He spread his arms wide as if he were addressing a crowd of thousands, not the solemn chamber of Congress. His words swelled, each sentence stretching further from the question, further from the evidence that still sat on the table. You want to talk about records? Let's talk about mine. Jobs, power, military strength. I gave America its pride back. I was the voice of the forgotten, the champion of the people, the only leader who dared to do what others were too weak to attempt. He gestured at the lawmakers before him, his tone dripping with contempt. And now you sit here pretending to judge me? You wouldn't last a day in my shoes, not one. I held absolute power, and I wielded it for this country. The crowd stirred, some nodding, others scoffing. But before his rhetoric could spiral further, Jasmine's voice sliced through. Mr. Trump, this isn't about your speeches. Answer the evidence. He ignored her, pressing on. When I spoke, markets moved. When I acted, nations trembled. Leaders begged for my approval. And you, he jabbed a finger toward her, you dare to lecture me? Answer the evidence. Jasmine fired back, her words clipped, sharp as gunfire. He rolled his shoulders, as if her interruptions were gnats to be swatted away. History will remember me as the most powerful man to ever hold this office. They'll write about me for centuries. They'll write about your corruption if you don't address what's in front of you. The exchange cracked like a duel. Every time he inflated himself, Jasmine punctured him. Every time he tried to drift into glory, she yanked him back to the cold, brutal present. His face reddened further, sweat beading on his brow. You're nothing but a mouthpiece. You don't understand greatness when you see it. Greatness doesn't tremble before paperwork. Greatness doesn't hide behind lies. Her rebuttals came fast, relentless, denying him air, denying him the luxury of wandering away from the truth. His words began to stumble. His rhythm faltered. But pride was a leash he could never break free from, and he kept tugging at it, desperate to reclaim dominance. I gave this country peace. I gave it strength. No one had the courage I had. Jasmine leaned forward, her voice cold as steel. No one had the contempt for the law that you had. The chamber gasped. Trump's fist came down, rattling the microphones. MG, he roared, the Vietnamese curse tumbling out raw and unpolished, the fury so sharp it shredded his usual control. Silence fell, heavy and stunned. Jasmine didn't even blink. Her face was carved from stone, her voice a blade dipped in ice. This is Congress, Mr. Trump. Not your stage, not your circus, not your throne. The words hung in the air like a verdict. For a moment, the only sound was the clicking of cameras, the frantic scribbling of reporters, capturing history line by line. Trump's breath rasped, his chest heaving, but Jasmine's calm presence swallowed the room. She hadn't just silenced him. She had stripped the theater from him, leaving only the bare truth exposed beneath the spotlight. The chair banged the gavel, his voice breaking, "Order! I demand order in this chamber!" But the chamber wasn't just out of order. It was electrified. Every eye flicked between Trump's outburst and Jasmine's unshaken response. Every ear clung to the echo of her words. This wasn't just a clash of arguments anymore. It was a war of endurance, of truth against bluster, of discipline against chaos. And Jasmine Crockett had made it clear. She wasn't there to play in his theater. She was there to dismantle it, piece by piece, until there was nothing left but the truth he couldn't outrun. The storm raged louder, and the nation held its breath. Jasmine didn't move at first. Her hands rested calmly on the table, fingertips pressed together like the edges of a blade waiting to strike. Then, with a quiet authority that sliced through the chaos, she reached beneath the stack of documents before her and slid out a sleek black tablet. The chamber tilted forward in unison. She tapped the screen, and with a flick, the monitors lining the walls blinked to life. A grainy video filled the air with static, then sound. Trump's voice, unmistakable, heavy with arrogance. "You do what I say and the deal goes through. You keep quiet and you'll be rewarded. If not, well, you'll regret it." The words dropped like bombs in the chamber. Gasps erupted. Reporters fumbled to hit record. Aides leaned in, wide-eyed. Trump's face drained of color, then flushed crimson. He leapt forward, nearly toppling his microphone. "Fake news, fabricated trash. This is a setup." His shout ricocheted across the chamber, but it couldn't drown out the hiss of his own voice replaying behind him. Jasmine tilted her head, her voice sharp but calm. "Is that not your voice, Mr. President?" He bared his teeth, the words grinding out. "Anyone can fake audio. It's AI, it's Hollywood tricks. You think this is proof? It's a joke." But sweat was already trailing down his temples, betraying the panic his words tried to mask. The chair pounded the gavel for order, but the room had burst into chaos. Lawmakers whispering furiously, journalists firing off texts, the gallery roaring with disbelief. Jasmine let the noise swell, then with surgical timing, dropped the next blow. "Then perhaps we should hear from someone who was on that call." The air froze. From the back of the chamber, a figure rose. The sound of footsteps echoed, deliberate, heavy with consequence. Every head turned as a man stepped forward, one of Trump's former aides, his face tight, his eyes set with grim resolve. Gasps tore through the room again. Trump spun, his body stiff with shock. "No, no, this is a witch hunt. You—" His voice cracked, sharp with rage and desperation. But the witness didn't stop. He took the oath, his hand trembling only slightly as he placed it on the Bible, then lifted his chin toward Jasmine. "I was there." The chamber thundered with uproar. Trump's voice rose higher, almost shrill. "He's lying, bought off, threatened. He's weak, pathetic. This is theater." But the man didn't look at Trump. His gaze was locked on Jasmine, as if her steadiness gave him the courage to stand. The call was real, the threats were real, and the orders came directly from him. The words detonated like dynamite. The chamber erupted, half with cheers, half with shouts. The gavel slammed over and over, desperate to restore order. Trump's face twisted with fury, veins straining against his neck. "You traitor! You disgusting traitor! You were nothing without me! Nothing!" The witness didn't flinch. "And yet I stand here, telling the truth. Something you've never done." Jasmine's eyes gleamed, not with triumph, but with a quiet, searing fire. She leaned in, her voice low but carrying across the room. So, Mr. President, still fake news? Or just a truth you can't escape? The silence that followed was deafening. Trump's jaw clenched. His eyes darted, searching for an exit, a lifeline, but found none. The sweat on his forehead shone under the lights. His lips trembled, but no words came. Just stammers, fragments, curses lost in the roar of cameras and the flood of flashes. The walls of denial he had built, brick by brick, were cracking. And Jasmine Crockett stood at the center, unyielding, holding the wrecking ball of evidence in her hands. This wasn't just theater anymore. This was exposure, a raw, unfiltered tearing open of truth. The nation watched, the world leaned in, and Donald Trump, for the first time in the hearing, looked cornered. But even cornered animals bite, and the danger was only beginning. Trump lurched forward, his voice booming, his fists slamming against the desk like drum beats of defiance. "You're a disgrace. You're pathetic, a fraud, a parasite feeding off my name. Without me, you'd be nothing. Nothing!" The words came in torrents, layered with curses, each one sharpened with venom meant to cut Jasmine down. He sneered, spitting between syllables, his insults jagged and personal. "You don't belong here. You're weak, a nobody pretending to be a warrior. Sit down before you embarrass yourself further." The chamber hissed with gasps and murmurs. Some flinched at the language, others leaned in closer, as though they'd paid for front row seats to a heavyweight fight. Jasmine, however, didn't blink. Her hands remained flat on the table, her shoulders squared, her gaze locked on him like steel meeting fire. When she spoke, her voice didn't rise to match his. It cut beneath it. Calm, precise, surgical. "Mr. President, every insult you hurl is just another confession. You cannot answer the questions, so you attack the woman asking them. That is not strength, that is fear." The words landed like body blows. Trump snarled, stabbing the air with his finger. "Don't lecture me about fear. I built this empire, I ran this country, I made history. You're just a loudmouth lawyer clinging to my spotlight." Jasmine leaned in slightly, her tone sharpening to a blade's edge. "Spotlight? You mistake exposure for glory. This light doesn't shine, it burns, and you're the one squirming under it." The crowd erupted again. Some clapped before being hushed. Others whispered feverishly, their pens racing across notebooks. Trump's face contorted, the veins at his temple throbbing. "Liar! Witch! You think the people believe you? They believe me. They always will." "Then why, Mr. President, do you shout so loudly if you are so certain?" The silence after her question was louder than his roar. It was as if she had ducked his wild swing and landed a clean jab to the ribs. The chamber froze, leaning in, the rhythm of the exchange as clear as any boxing match. Round after round, insult against rebuttal. Trump cursed under his breath, shaking his head, then thundered again. "You think you're clever? You're a fraud, Jasmine. You hide behind papers, behind witnesses. You're not brave. You're just playing a part." She answered without hesitation, her eyes glinting like polished steel. "If exposing the truth is a performance, then history will remember me as the lead role, and you, Mr. President, as the scandal that brought the House down." The chamber gasped, half in awe, half in disbelief. It was no longer politics, no longer a hearing. It was a duel, two fighters exchanging blows in a ring made of words. Trump threw haymakers of rage, profanity dressed as power, declarations of his might. Jasmine countered with precision, each syllable a jab to the jaw, each pause a feint, each phrase a strike to the gut. The audience outside, millions glued to their screens, felt their pulses rise. Commentators whispered like sports announcers. "He's stumbling. She's cutting deep. This is no ordinary hearing. This is a fight." Back inside, Trump leaned forward, his voice hoarse now, sweat dripping onto the wood of the desk. "You think you've won? You'll never win. I am untouchable. I am the president." Jasmine's lips curled into the faintest smile. "Power does not make you untouchable. It makes you accountable. And accountability is standing right in front of you." It was a knockout line. The chamber thundered. Trump slammed his fists again, but it no longer carried the same weight. The sweat, the trembling hands, the cracks in his voice. They all betrayed the image he clung to. Jasmine hadn't just defended. She had controlled the rhythm, dictated the fight, turned his fury into her weapon. And as the gavel hammered for silence once more, the nation watching knew this wasn't simply politics. It was history. It was combat. And Jasmine Crockett was winning on points. Every word another strike. Every strike another step closer to the truth. But Trump wasn't finished. Not yet. He leaned back suddenly, a grin crawling across his face. The kind of grin that didn't signal victory, but treachery. His hand slipped beneath the desk, and when it returned, he held a thick folder, its edges dog-eared, its cover stamped with the heavy red letters. Confidential. The chamber leaned forward, sensing something. Trump slammed it onto the desk with a thud that echoed. Papers spilled, scattering like cards from a magician's deck. You want evidence? Here it is. Proof of her corruption, her scandals, her lies. He pointed directly at Jasmine, his voice dripping with triumph. She wants to lecture me on honesty? Show the world who she really is. Gasps rippled through the room. The crowd outside, watching from their living rooms, leaned closer to their screens. Headlines seemed to write themselves. Trump strikes back. Crockett exposed. Reporters scrambled. Cameras zoomed in. Jasmine's name in black ink, her signature scrawled across documents. Lines highlighted in neon yellow. At first glance, it looked damning. For the first time that day, doubt flickered in the air. This can't be real, someone whispered from the gallery. Is this the end for her? Murmured another. Trump's grin widened. He puffed his chest, soaking in the gasps like applause. I told you, she's no hero. She's a fraud, just like I said. You wanted a warrior for justice? You got a liar in disguise. The tide of noise swelled. Shock, murmurs, disbelief. For a heartbeat, it seemed the momentum had shifted. But Jasmine didn't flinch. She rose slowly, gathering the scattered papers in her hands. Her eyes scanned each line with a surgeon's steadiness, her lips curving, not with panic, but with something sharper. She lifted her gaze, pinning Trump with it. Is this your play? Forged paperwork? A theater of lies? Mr. Trump, you've mistaken me for someone who won't read past the headlines. Her voice cut through the chamber, silencing the murmurs. She raised the first sheet high, her finger tracing the signature. This, right here, is a laughable attempt. My signature slants right. This forgery slants left. Amateur work, gasps again. But this time at him, not her. She tossed the page aside, lifting another. And this? Dates don't even match. I was sworn into Congress 6 months after this supposed transaction. Did your team forget how calendars work? Laughter broke through the tension. Nervous at first, then bolder. Trump's smile faltered. Jasmine didn't stop. Her hands moved with precision. Each page another weak swing she dismantled with ease. This contract cites a law repealed 5 years before it was signed. This invoice lists an office that doesn't exist. This memo uses a font that wasn't even available until 2 years later. The chamber buzzed louder, the murmurs turning into gasps of admiration, bursts of incredulous chuckles. Jasmine dropped the final page onto the desk with a slap. Mr. President, if this is your evidence, then your entire defense is as counterfeit as these papers. The room erupted. Applause thundered, bouncing off the marble walls, drowning out the gavel slamming for order. Some stood, clapping harder, their faces alight with vindication. Trump's face twisted, red to purple, his hand slamming against the desk. Shut up! This is real! This is real evidence! Don't you see? She's lying. She's twisting it all. But no one was listening anymore, because Jasmine had not just defended herself. She had taken his so-called weapon, stripped it bare, and turned it into a confession of his own desperation. She stood taller now, her voice slicing through the chaos. When the truth isn't enough, liars manufacture lies. And when those lies crumble under scrutiny, all that remains is the panic of the guilty. Every word slammed into the chamber like a verdict. The applause roared again, longer, louder, unstoppable. Trump screamed over it, his words garbled, drowned by the swell. But the damage was done. The plot twist had landed. and Jasmine Crockett had turned his dirtiest play into her most dazzling triumph yet. But she wasn't done. She leaned forward, eyes locked, her voice honed to a razor's edge. There was no softness in her tone, only command. Yes or no, Mr. Trump? Did you sign this authorization? The question struck like a gavel. The room stilled. Even the hum of cameras seemed to pause. Trump blinked, swallowed, shifted in his chair. His lips moved, but no answer came. Jasmine didn't wait. Yes or no? Did you benefit from that transaction? Trump's jaw worked furiously, but his words stumbled out, clumsy, half-formed. That's irrelevant. Answer the question, Jasmine snapped. Yes or no? The chamber pulsed with tension, a living thing pressing down on every chest. Reporters leaned forward, pens suspended. Every second of hesitation stretched like an eternity. Trump wiped his forehead, the sheen of sweat catching in the lights. His famed bluster faltered, smothered under the blunt weight of binary truth. Yes or no? Jasmine repeated, cutting off his attempt at another speech. There was no room for detours, no escape hatch of rhetoric. The crowd knew it. Every yes or no was a chain, binding him tighter, pulling him closer to the edge. Trump tried to slam his hand on the desk, to summon back the thunder of old rallies. I don't have to dignify this with yes or no, Jasmine struck again, her tone iron, her timing merciless. She gave nothing, no space, no mercy, no air. For him, every choice was poison. Admit and fall, deny and be caught, stay silent and let the silence convict him. Yes or no? Were you present during that call? The words hung like a guillotine. Trump's face twitched. His fingers drummed the wood, desperate for rhythm, for control. But Jasmine did not blink. She watched him unravel, eyes steady as stone. If it's false, say no. If it's true, say yes. Simple, isn't it? A ripple tore through the chamber. Gasps, whispers, the stunned laughter of disbelief. It was a courtroom and a battlefield, a stage and an execution ground, all in one. Trump's breath grew louder, ragged. Each inhale sounded like a man drawing air through water. Yes or no? Jasmine pressed again, her voice almost cold enough to frost the walls. The silence screamed louder than any outburst. Every tick of the clock was a hammer driving the nail deeper. Yes or no? Did you know about the transaction before it happened? The question landed like a body blow. Trump froze, eyes wide, throat working uselessly. Yes or no? The gallery seemed to lean forward in unison. The tension snapped nerves like brittle glass. Trump finally rasped, I don't recall. The chamber exploded. Gasps, groans, nervous laughter spilling over. It was too late. Everyone had heard what mattered. Hesitation, retreat, collapse. Jasmine didn't smile. She didn't need to. Her voice was steady as ever. Not recalling is not an answer. Yes or no, Mr. Trump? The rhythm of her assault was hypnotic, brutal. Like waves battering a cliff, each question tore more of his foundation away. Trump's face shone red, his fists clenched, his shoulders caving under invisible weight. The cameras caught everything. The sweat, the stutters, the fracture of power. Then came the killing stroke. Yes or no? Did you lie to this Congress? The words cracked across the chamber like lightning. The room froze. Even the air seemed to shiver. Trump's mouth opened, then closed. No sound emerged. And in that cavernous silence, his downfall echoed louder than any denial could. The gallery erupted. Shouts, flashes, the roar of history being written in real time. Trump sat cornered, breathing hard, drowning under two impossible words. Jasmine leaned back slowly, the storm she had summoned still raging around her. She had asked nothing extraordinary, only the simplest questions of all, yes or no. And with them, she had brought a giant to his knees. The chamber, once fractured by shouts and tension, now shifted into something stranger, silence. But it wasn't the silence of fear. It was the silence of realization. Rows of lawmakers who had once shielded Donald Trump with their voices, their loyalty, their presence, now stared down at their notes, their shoes, their trembling hands. The mighty fortress was beginning to crumble from within. Jasmine Crockett rose to her full height, her voice carrying like a verdict. "No one," she declared, the words slicing clean through the stale air. "No one in this country stands above justice, not even the President of the United States." Her words hung heavy, undeniable, amplified by the hush that followed. Even the air seemed to lean closer, listening. Trump's face darkened to crimson. His chair screeched against the marble as he shot up, veins straining against his skin. His roar cracked across the chamber. "I am America!" It was meant to be thunder. It was meant to summon obedience, to remind them of the rallies, the flags, the chants. But instead, laughter. First a chuckle, then a ripple, then a wave. Some tried to smother it behind their hands. Others didn't bother at all. The sound filled the chamber, raw, human, merciless. And in that laughter, Trump's power fractured. The emperor, once draped in intimidation, stood suddenly bare. Jasmine didn't laugh. She didn't need to. She let the chorus of mockery do its work, a living mirror of his unraveling. Slowly, deliberately, she leaned forward, her eyes locking on his. "You are not America," she said softly, each word an anchor. "America is bigger than you, stronger than you, wiser than you, and it will outlast you." Her calm was lethal. Every syllable reminded the room that Trump's shout was not strength. It was desperation. Trump slammed his fist against the table, but the sound echoed hollow, powerless, like an old drum beaten too long. His words tumbled out in fragments, half snarls, half pleas. They wouldn't have jobs without me. They only won because of me. I built this country back." But nobody answered. Not a single lawmaker rose to echo him. Not one voice stepped in to shield him. That was the crack. The silence of allies who once roared now felt louder than any opposition. It was the sound of power bleeding out, drop by drop. Jasmine saw it. She pressed the advantage, her tone crisp, undeniable. "You see it, don't you? The truth is not in my words, it's in theirs." She swept her gaze across the chamber, to the bowed heads, the slumped shoulders. "Even those who once defended you cannot carry the weight of your lies any longer." Trump froze, his chest heaving, his hands clutching at the table, as though the wood itself might keep him upright. And in the gallery above, whispers turned into murmurs, murmurs into shouts. "Enough!" someone cried. "Resign!" another voice rang out. The tide was shifting in real time, and Trump could feel it like quicksand around his ankles. He tried again, louder, desperate. "You can't do this to me. I am this country. I am the reason you're even sitting here." But the words no longer carried the weight they once had. They hung in the air like smoke, seen, smelled, but easily dispersed. Jasmine waited for the laughter and jeers to fade before speaking again. Her voice was quieter now, but sharper, like a blade whispered against skin. "You have mistaken yourself for the nation. That is your greatest lie." The chamber erupted, not with chaos, but with applause. Measured, controlled, the sound of walls closing in. Trump staggered, his eyes darting across the room, searching for one friendly face, one nod of support. But he found none. Every bowed head, every silent ally, was a crack in the wall he once thought unbreakable. And Jasmine Crockett stood at the center, steady as stone, watching the giant collapse brick by brick. The rift was no longer hidden. It was open, wide, impossible to ignore. The chamber had chosen its side, and Trump was alone. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. And then Jasmine Crockett moved. Slowly, deliberately, she reached into her folder, the sound of paper brushing against paper magnified by the tension. Her hand emerged gripping a single document, not a stack, not a binder. Just one sheet. The simplicity of it was devastating. She held it aloft, her gaze never leaving Trump's. "This," she said, her voice steady, almost solemn, "is the last piece of the puzzle, the final proof, the blade of truth." Trump's face drained of color before flushing crimson. His jaw tightened, his chest heaved. "No, that's fake. More fake news, more garbage." But Jasmine didn't even glance at him. She placed the document down on the desk with a sharp crack. The sound echoed like a hammer strike. The entire chamber leaned in as though gravity itself had shifted toward that single page. "Sign," she continued, tapping the paper once, "by your own hand, dated, sealed, and corroborated by witnesses who will stand here today." The words slammed into the air like iron doors closing. Trump's mouth worked furiously, but his voice betrayed him. It cracked, it faltered, it broke into fragments. "Lies, all of it. I never... This is a witch hunt." But his roar was no longer thunder. It was the strangled cry of a man drowning in front of millions. From the gallery above, the audience stirred like a tidal wave. Gasps, shouts, the fevered clicking of cameras. Every lens was trained on that single sheet of paper, on Trump's shaking hands, on Jasmine's unflinching composure. The sound swelled until his protests were swallowed whole. "Order!" The gavel slammed, but even the presiding chair could not mute history as it thundered forward. Jasmine's voice cut through the roar, commanding. "Mr. Trump, for hours you have dodged, shouted, lied. But here..." She tapped the page again, her tone unyielding. "Here is the truth in black and white. No slogans, no theatrics, just your name, binding you to corruption." The room erupted again, the energy electric, unstoppable. Trump tried to shout over it. "I am the victim. They're all out to get me." But his voice dissolved beneath a tidal surge of cheers and jeers. It was over, and he knew it. His hands trembled visibly now. The sweat on his brow dripped in rivulets, glistening under the lights, betraying a man stripped bare. Cameras zoomed in mercilessly, catching the twitch in his jaw, the redness creeping up his neck. Around him, the lawmakers he once commanded sat still, silent, unwilling to throw him a single lifeline. And Jasmine Crockett stood like an unyielding pillar, calm, resolute, victorious. "History," she said quietly, though the microphones carried it across the world, "will not remember your excuses. It will remember your signature. And it will remember this chamber choosing justice over fear." The weight of her words settled across the room, pressing down until even the air felt thick. Trump staggered, reaching for the table, as if the wood might keep him from collapsing. But it was not the table that betrayed him. It was his own voice, now reduced to stammers and gasps. The gallery roared again, louder than before. Applause, shouts of triumph, the release of years of anger and expectation all at once. And far beyond the chamber, across televisions and live streams, across millions of households, the world watched. Some stood, some wept, some whispered to their children. This is history. Everywhere the same truth held. Jasmine Crockett had dealt the final blow. The card Trump thought he owned had turned into the blade pressed against his throat. And as the chamber drowned in the sound of its own revolution, one reality stood undeniable. The giant had fallen. The presiding chair rose, gavel in hand, his voice heavy with the solemnity of history. "Order! This chamber will have order." The echoes faded into a silence more powerful than the roar before it. Every eye locked on him, waiting for the words that would seal the moment. "Donald J. Trump," he declared, the syllables sharp as iron, "you will face the legal consequences of your actions. This body will forward its findings, and justice will have its day." The gavel struck once, final, thunderous. The sound reverberated like a drumbeat of destiny. Trump's face contorted, crimson with rage, twisted with disbelief. He pounded the table with both fists, sputtering words that stumbled out broken. "This is a sham, a disgrace. I built this nation. You're nothing without me." But his voice no longer commanded. It echoed hollow, like a king screaming in an empty hall. Across the chamber, heads turned away. The lawmakers who once marched to his rhythm now refused even to meet his eyes. The fortress of loyalty had shattered. And then, Jasmine Crockett rose. Her shoulders squared, her chin lifted, her very presence filling the hall with quiet fire. She did not need to raise her voice. Her calm was a greater weapon than any shout. "Mr. Trump," she said, each word deliberate, final, "you will learn today what you never understood. America does not belong to you. It belongs to its people, and those people have chosen justice. The chamber erupted, but not with chaos, with applause. Thunderous, relentless applause. Flashes from cameras burst like fireworks, catching her in silhouette, the warrior of justice, the woman who stood unflinching against the storm. Newsrooms across the world lit up instantly. Jasmine Crockett strikes down Trump, the fall of a president. Justice rises in the halls of power. The headlines spread like wildfire. Television anchors stammered to keep pace, their voices trembling as they narrated a moment already etched into history. And in homes across America, millions watched. Some cried, some cheered, some whispered to their children, "This is what courage looks like." Trump slumped in his chair, shoulders heavy, lips quivering. The cameras did not look away. The world saw him not as the titan he once projected, but as a man stripped bare, fragile, furious, finished. Yet he would not bow. Even in defeat, his mouth twisted into bitter defiance. "This isn't over," he hissed, though his words were drowned by the cheers that rolled through the chamber like a storm tide. And perhaps he was right. For justice is never over. It is a pursuit, not a single day's work. Jasmine stood still in the center of it all, the eye of the storm. She did not smile, though the world cheered for her. She did not revel, though the cameras immortalized her triumph. She only lifted her head, eyes steady, as though already looking past this battle to the ones yet to come. Because she knew, corruption does not vanish with one man. Injustice does not crumble in a single trial. The fight is longer, harder, eternal. The presiding chair struck the gavel again, calling the session to a close. But the echoes carried far beyond those walls, into streets, into headlines, into history. And as the crowd poured out, voices alive with the fire of change, one truth lingered above all. This was not an ending. It was a beginning. The giant had fallen, yes. But shadows still lurked. Power still sought to twist the truth. And justice would always have enemies. Jasmine Crockett walked out of the chamber, not as a politician, but as a symbol, a beacon in an age of storm. And as the cameras followed her into the light, a single line closed the day, whispered like a prophecy, etched into the hearts of millions. This is not the end. Justice will keep hunting the darkness. In the end, the fall of a giant was never just about one man's defeat, but about the timeless truth that no power stands above justice. Courage is not born in comfort. It rises when voices refuse to be silenced, when integrity outshines fear. And so this story reminds us all, the fight for what is right is not the burden of the few, but the calling of us all. Only when ordinary people choose truth over silence can darkness ever be truly defeated. If this story shook you, don't just move on. Pause, reflect, share it. Send it to someone who still believes power should answer to truth. Subscribe to Harrison Stories, where justice is never silent. Hit the bell, because the next tale won't be safe. It will be raw, and it might just change how you see those who claim to rule. This story is a fictional dramatization, inspired by real struggles, real abuses, and real courage. Any resemblance to actual people or events is symbolic, meant for public reflection and critique. Thank you for watching. Justice isn't given, it's fought for. This is Harrison Stories.